Another great question here from Ben Rogers. He split it into two pieces, so I'll read the first and close the second. He wrote, Buzz, having dreamt of walking on the moon since watching yourself and Neil since I was young, do you see commercial flights to the moon in the next 40 years?
The expenses involved in transporting human beings to the surface of the moon indeed was very daunting and very high and demanding back in the 60s and 70s. And just taking U.S. astronauts to a space station in low Earth orbit, we're being charged by Russia to be able to do that at $65 million per astronaut delivered and returned from the space station. So we're not talking about a small amount of money to attain individual travel to low Earth orbit and beyond. We can certainly, with some additions, take people on cycling orbits between Earth and the moon, where they could fly by the surface of the moon on the far side or on the near side. But to slow down and enter lunar orbit puts the crew and the spacecraft at additional risks, and then to make the very difficult decision landing on the surface again requires that they be equipped with a way of returning back to Earth and executing very demanding technical spacecraft maneuvering to be able to land. That was indeed the most difficult part of the Apollo missions. It wasn't at all difficult to open the hatch and go down the ladder and walk around on the surface. That, of course, was the most symbolic to the news media and to the public internationally, was the image of a human being actually setting foot on the moon and then moving around conducting meaningful experiments on the surface. Now, there is a scheduled, well, not really scheduled, but there is a program that has been talked about and put forth and somewhat organized, entitled Golden Spike, which the objective of that organization is to transport individuals to the surface of the moon. My first impression was, where are we going to find that many billionaires to be able to afford the price of developing that capability and then spreading it out among the number of people who would be willing to put up that amount of money for one trip to the moon and back. I've since learned that the plan, which begins to make sense to me, is that nations who do not have a space program may very well want to finance an individual from that nation to achieve this this action of landing on the moon, and then to become a role model and an example for education, advancing technology, and status of that nation in the eyes of other people in the world. So a nation could very easily come up with that kind of money to finance an individual from that nation. Now, whether that completes into a meaningful business plan for this activity, I've yet to be informed just how they would intend to launch people from Earth, make the maneuvers necessary to reach the moon and make the landing, and then return the individuals back to the surface of the Earth. That's not a trivial matter, as we found out in Apollo, but I think we need to receive a little bit more details of just how they would carry that out in order to make a meaningful evaluation of whether that's a practical thing. And saying that, it also reminds me of a program from the Netherlands called Mars One, one-way trips, where they have been eliciting applicants that so far have approached almost 80,000 people have volunteered to be on these one-way trips, they call them, to the surface of Mars. I am quite familiar with what it takes to be able to get people from a nation and international nations to the surface of Mars for permanent occupation of a significant Mars base. I'm quite familiar with what it takes to do that, and it's rather enormous to expect the company from the Netherlands to be able to do that. We certainly have to have many, many more details as to how they intend to accomplish this. Otherwise, it puts itself in the category of sort of marketing applicants for the benefit of publicity and perhaps some financial return, but without actually carrying through with their one-way trips to the surface of Mars.